As stated, this is also true in the art of peace. So, according to Sun Tzu, it is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or ruin. And this is what when we're dealing with people, we have to understand, at that particular time that we have peace, or we have, we have a challenge or whatnot, is how do we utilize that toward the goals that we are trying to achieve is the biggest thing. How do we do that? Just because peace doesn't mean, as His Holiness said, peace is not the absence of conflict, right? Peace is something that you have to constantly pursue. You have to make sure that it's maintainable, and this is maintainable through rules and regulations. The importance of rules and regulations. What grasped me well about the art of war is the necessity for it to have rules and regulations. Just like us who have ordained or ordination, we have rules and regulations that govern our body, speech, and mind. It doesn't mean if someone says something that is, not quite right, or I guess insulting in a particular way, it doesn't mean that you just have to keep quiet. But this is a fallacy. You do have a right in order to speak up for yourself. But when you're speaking up with yourself, there are borders that you do or don't want to, or that you don't want to cross. Just because you disagree with the person doesn't mean that you should be throwing punches. We know what we can stand our ground. We can, tell whatever is necessary in order to get our point across. But once we relinquish our template and we allow their actions to dominate our minds, then that is the point that we lose control of the situation, and we're no longer practicing that of the art of war and peace. You can be wrathful, like any of the deities. When you're talking, you can be wrathful, externally wrathful, internally in control. You can still have compassion and love for a person and then tell them you cannot do that. Don't do that. Right? These are not in oppositions. Now, if you have somebody who is external to us, or somebody who's looking and they will say, oh, where's your compassion or whatnot? The reality is that whether you are compassionate or not compassionate doesn't determine upon what the majority of people, nor the minority of people, might be thinking. It's based upon what's true and what's not true. That's the biggest difference right there. So, in any consideration of lasting peace, identification of perils of war and the reality of conflict must be considered. This is a very big contemplation in terms of the art of peace, is that of the identification of, if I retaliate in a way that is beyond the template that I have agreed to, that I'm going to construct my moral self. If you retaliate beyond those borders, you start throwing punches or whatnot, the consequences of that is undeterminable. If you maintain within the realm of control in terms of what you're going to do, body, speech, and mind, then what happens is that you have the capability of determining better the probable outcome of any conflict. So the idea of the art of war and peace is the idea of being able to, during the time of conflict, to be able to control the outcome of it so that it's in favor, it's favorable to you. It's not blind. You can almost sit there and say, I did this on purpose for this particular reason. And you can see the reason actually bring forth a fruition of positive things. If you do it just because out of reaction, then what happens is that you don't know. This is what we call speculation. It's a speculative outcome. You have no idea what really might happen if you've not contemplated it well, the outcome. So in any consideration of lasting peace, identification of the perils of war. People start war and they think that it's going to be over in a couple of days, and it continues on for a lifetime. Not well contemplated, right? There's other ways of dealing with the conditions and situations that present themselves without going into war. And the realities of conflict must be considered. His Holiness the Dalai Lama stated, peace is not merely the absence of war, which I just said before, that peace is not the absence of war. It's not just because the deer is in the forest and eating grass and not aggressive doesn't mean that there's peace, right? I argue that peace should be aware of the possibility of abuse. So peace itself should anchor its capabilities within rules and regulations, in which when things happen and things come up, what you have the ability is to be able to anchor yourself, that you will not go beyond certain morals that you know to be true. This is strength, right? This is real strength. Peace is not the mere absence of war. Peace is a result of putting effort into understanding what will create harmony and contemplation, and contemplating the cause and conditions that lead to it. If you think that if I'm silent, if something happens and you're silent, that peace is achievable, you should understand that all this is a matter of appeasement. You cannot go forward through appeasement. If you have a bully, you cannot allow the bully to gain a foothold or more capability of being able to do what they have already done, because they'll only do more. So the idea is contemplating that, the reaction, that just because you're peaceful and you just say nothing doesn't mean everybody around you is going to share the same thought. What you need to do is to not react just for the meaning of reacting, but contemplate the possibilities of alleviating that. So the art of peace is a deep methodical type of contemplation regarding of the conditions that are at hand in the field, right? So now here, what he talks about in terms of external conditions which are necessary. Now we can't govern the internal thoughts of a person, but you can sure govern the external things that they do, right? You can bring you can bring forth consequences. You can bring forth consequences of actions. If you do this and this, the consequences will be this, this, and this, in terms of a deterrent. And not only say it, but stand behind whatever consequences are necessary. There are many examples. Do not take the art of war as a picture of how you act in any situation that happens. What you have to do is take the art of war and peace and use that as a template in deciding what you're going to do, deciding through contemplation and thought about what you're going to do in order to continue in the direction of obtaining what you set out to obtain, right? So from this, we can set the foundation of a lasting peace. Therefore, we must turn, we must during the time of conflict, lay plans for a lasting peace. So even during the time of conflict, the projection without what do you call it, giving into the whims of the other person, is you set the foundation of peace. If another person thinks that you're not capable of doing something, or that you'll renege on what you believe in, then they become uncontrollable. And then peace itself, the lack of peace, will not only harm you, it'll harm other people also. Once the idea that they have the capability of getting away with. And during the time of peace, resolve all possibility of tension. This is a very important, because the idea of a lot of times people will look at the problem without understanding the cause of the problem. This is where the contemplation, this is where negotiation, this is where diplomacy reigns supreme, right? Yes. Before
when you talk about, when you say that peace is not merely an absence of war, does it mean, you were talking mostly about external situations. What about the inner work?
Now, the inner work, if say if you have a tendency to steal, and you have an opportunity, if internally you say to yourself, no, don't do that, you're only dealing with yourself, right? So my resolution to the problem would be, just don't do it. And I know you've heard me on many occasions say that, just don't do it. Sometimes it's even, say, in the terms of conflict, and say you develop a what do you call it, an anger or whatnot. Sometimes it's best just to say, I don't want to talk about it now. I'll talk to you later, and completely wipe it off of your mind, because it'll come back, but it'll come back lesser, and you'll be able to prepare yourself better. The whole thing about the art of peace is the art of being able to make preparations in order to maintain the direction that you're going in. You're trying to maintain yourself. You're trying to what do you call it? Subdue. Okay. You can't subdue without without effort. I'm not talking about avoiding anything. Yeah. I'm talking about being able to affect the outcome so that it would be positive to what you want to do. It's about making sure that the outcome of the action is something that will be benefit the direction in which you're going. Does that mean that the person that you're talking to is going to be subdued? No. It means that you have changed the direction of the situation so that they are no longer able to dominate the outcome of what's going to happen. That's a big difference. Okay, if we can stop here. Please, if you like the discourse, like the discussion, please give us a thumbs up. Follow what we're doing, and it's quite a long book, because of the reason we give a lot of explanations, but we're going to continue doing this and enjoy doing this. I really enjoy talking to everyone. So please, thumbs up, like us. If you know somebody else who might be interested in this type of discourse, please, invite them to listen in. Thank you.
Thank you.